Horror movies, we all love them. Whether we're an aficionado diving into every single horror movie that we can find, either at your local cinema or on any of the numerous goddamn streaming services throughout the information superhighway, we love a good goddamn horror movie. We love a good scare, or we love a good laugh with our scare, or we love a lot of splatters with our scares. Whatever you want to goddamn dive into, horror has you covered. And even if you're a casual horror fan, you can still find a cornucopia amount of horror movies to dive into. And whether you're elderly to the point that you remember when Nosferatu was actually around, like if you're Zoe Stark, that's a deep cut for wrestling fans. Whether you're in the prime of your life, whether you're legit in the prime of your life, whether you're an up-and-coming adult or you're a kid, kids love horror movies. And if you are letting your child watch a horror movie, don't let it be any of the following on this particular list, because boy. I'm John Rentham with the 15 worst horror movies of 2024 list with some honorable mentions. All of these movies were reviewed in full on the Real Honest Movie Reviews playlist. And full disclosure, I've seen over 300 movies as of this recording. Over 150 of those have been horror adjacent, however you want to go about it. And yeah, I've decided to basically take some time in December before the holidays get here and I get a little busier to just talk about this. I will be doing some half-decade lists at some point. Horror, best and worst movies in general. And the best and worst movies of 2024 list will be coming up at some point. The 10 most surprising, 10 most disappointing movies of 2024 lists are up. And also, I have a letterbox where I've been reviewing all of these as well. So that being said, let's just get right on into the honorable mentions with Afraid. Yeah, you want to talk about a goddamn movie that was just more of an indication that Blumhouse has completely lost the goddamn plot. It felt like it was totally hacked up, like there was maybe a halfway decent idea here about AI taking over and maybe AI being able to influence people, but the thing is, none of the ideas were even half-baked. They were barely goddamn simmering at any point. I think they were just giving it to us raw. It's fucking raw! And yeah, this was a complete waste and a complete disaster, and I remember sitting in the back of the theater while I was taking notes thinking, they don't know what the fuck they're goddamn doing. Holy goddamn shit. Afraid was really, really bad. Under Paris. It's a French Jaws with some eco-centric commentary and some of the worst special effects I've seen in a while. And yeah, monumentally dumb decisions, and they thought it could get a sequel. Stephen King said it has an amazing 25 closing minutes. I think Stephen King got hit by another van because I don't know what the fuck he was thinking there. Everybody can have different opinions, but in this case, the master of horror is wrong. Yeah, Under Paris is not scary, not really anything good. And I have to put it up here just because I kept hearing about this movie, thinking that, okay, maybe the positive feedback will lead somewhere. No, it really fucking didn't. So, All My Friends Are Dead. Jojo Siwa or whatever was advertised being in this, and really wasn't it all that much. And the other characters that were in this pretty much reminded me that the social media, influencer subgenre that I have seen a lot of this year. I've seen at least 8 to 10 variations of social media influencers being targeted by a killer or something. And All My Friends Are Dead was one of the goddamn worst. And the reason I'm putting it up here is because I actually decided to throw a few bucks down and check this goddamn thing out. And man, what the actual fuck were they thinking? It started out halfway all right. And within by the time we got 15 minutes in, I'm like, okay, this is pretty goddamn ass. Pretty goddamn ass. The Exorcism. Shockingly, the worst of the two Exorcist-based horror movies that Russell Crowe has done in the past year. He did The Pope's Exorcist, that admittedly I was probably a little bit too kind to. The Exorcism has him as a recovering alcoholic addict, whatever, on a set, and demonic possession sets in. And wow, this was just shoved down on a streaming service. I think it's on Shudder. And I like Russell Crowe. Love the guy even, because he's had some great goddamn roles. But now, he's just doing whatever the fuck he wants, which I can respect. But he probably should just go out with his goddamn band and maybe stop doing movies if he's just going to do stuff like this. So then we get the history of evil. Let's just take the idea of racism going back generations, but let's not make it interesting. Let's do a one location shoot. Let's do horrible flashbacks. Let's have horrible acting, horrible characters. And yeah, the history of evil, it's the history of evil characters with bad writing. That'd be a wordy goddamn title. I wasn't that excited for this movie at first, but the reason I'm putting it on here is Shudder has put some great goddamn originals out. I'll even talk about one possibly on the best list. See? Or maybe I already did. You don't know when I record it. But History of Evil is just another example of like just shoved out content, influence horror. It doesn't really have any reason to exist. Just like Destroy All Neighbors, Jonah from the most recent MST3K seasons. The guy seems funny. The guy seems nice. He does actually get a little bit too much hate, I think, for trying to take MST in a different direction or at least put his own spin on it. That's how people felt when Mike replaced Joel. And I'm going to be honest, I wanted to like this. It seemed like it had a halfway decent idea. But for a horror comedy, it had neither enough horror nor enough comedy. The body horror effects weren't really all that good. And for something that was apparently supposed to be like this just outlandish, ridiculous, yes, low budget, horror comedy, yeah, pretty goddamn shitty. This is also on Shudder if you want to check it out. And Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2. You know what's sad? I don't even think the first one made it to my worst list last year. But the reason I'm putting Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey 2 on this is you would have thought they would have at least tried a little bit better with this. A little bit more. No, they really didn't. This apparently had a much bigger budget. The first one cost, what, $150,000, $200,000, something like that, whatever it was. And this had apparently $1 million budget, or thereabouts, and somehow the production values were about the same. And I remember watching this on Peacock, because I thought, oh, I could pay for it. And then I remember I paid for the last one to rent it for about 10 or so bucks and regret it. So I'm like, I'm not going to make that mistake. And then it dropped on Peacock, and I'm like, Peacock should have paid me to watch this goddamn movie. Now to the top 15, right now, Subservience. Oh boy, Megan Fox playing a robot. How can we tell the difference? Har har. Yeah, she plays an AI bot nanny that becomes evil and also is Megan Fox acting vapid. So I really don't know if this is typecasting or this is just how Megan Fox always is, but granted, Megan was at least better than this, but this basically was like a low-budget version of Megan just without the personality, because I don't think Megan Fox can spell personality, to be fair, though she was good in Jennifer's Body. Yet, Subservience was really bad. Really, really bad horror. Let's get to number 14, Salem's Lot. Oh, boy. Where to goddamn start with this? This fucking fiasco of a goddamn remake with... if you thought the 1979 miniseries was too stretched out, this somehow managed to only be like maybe an hour and 10 minutes shorter. Yet somehow I think skipped over like at least half the goddamn book. If not more. I think they include like maybe 30% of the book. Because there were just long sequences of just bullshit. And yes, there were people, there were certain characters that had to be cut out or minimalized because of the runtime, and I understand that. But this is just shoved out on Max for a goddamn reason. And as somebody that didn't necessarily care, I didn't hate but didn't love the original. I was like, okay, this could take it in a new direction. And it did. Down into the goddamn depths of hell, where it should stay. Do not do a sequel. Do not do Return to Salem's Lot. Do not do any of this stuff. The honest to God Back to Salem's Lot was really, really fucking bad. So, speaking of bad, this weather is really goddamn bad. In case you notice, I seem a little run down. Night Swim, number 13. The fact that this was one of the first movies that I saw, and it already went straight onto my worst list. And admittedly, when I did the 10 worst horror movies of 2024 list so far, I don't know if I mentioned Night Swim, because there were so many others and everything, but I actually did rewatch it. Yes, I decided to rewatch this recently, in the past few weeks. That's recent to me, because time is a flat circle. But I decided to rewatch this just to see, okay, is it really as bad as I remember? Was I too harsh on it? No, I wasn't harsh enough. Because just for if they had just made this thing rated R, it would have worked better. I remember watching this actually, I saw this like at a not even a special screening. It was a solo screen. I was the only person there. And God, if anybody else had been there, I think everybody would have been heckling the goddamn thing. It was so goddamn bad. Cheap scares, stupid characters. It is astonishing that the main actress in this went from the Banshees of Inisherin to this. And the hint of possibly doing a sequel. Why? I mean, I'm sorry. This was just goofy and ridiculous and went absolutely nowhere. It should have just been drowned in the goddamn pool. The fact is, if you ever see these short, the like 2-3 minute short that this is based on, that's at least better than this, because it's shorter. Ironic for a short film. Yeah, Night Swim, not good. Tarot, yeah. This felt like it was plucked out of like the late 90s, complete with like stupid jump scares. Some special effects that aren't all that good. A bit more blood than I would have expected from something that was, I believe, PG-13. And one of the girls that was in Mean Girls was in this. I try to remember her name, but it's a really weird spelling, so I don't want to butcher it, because I already butchered it in the other reviews. Tarot, basically you have this person that's doing, this killer that is targeting people based on cards that were drawn in a tarot deck. Oh boy. And it was like a choose your own adventure of stupid. They didn't even have elaborate sets. People just died in goofy ways. And it honestly made me laugh. The reason it made me laugh is because they actually thought this was worth putting out in theaters. Now, it made a mint. I don't know how it made money. I honestly do not know, because this movie's dog shit. So they had a hit here, but if you happen to see, if this is on a streaming service and you want to watch this, give it a shot. I can't remember if it's Hulu or Netflix as of now, but yeah, if you can get something out of this, great. I really, really fucking hated this. I was pretty much just ripping it apart from the opening of my review, because what the fuck else can I do? It starts off like a bad version of Are You Afraid of the Dark, with slightly less Canadian accents and worse acting, which is saying something about Are You Afraid of the Dark. Sorry to all my friends in Canada, but let's be honest, the acting in that show was not necessarily great. Tarot just ends up being this amalgamation of really dumb characters and stupid jump scares, and the gray-haired lady that was also in The Watchers, and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Netflix remake, Olwen something or other, I can never remember her last name. And evidently she just wants to star in anything, so yeah, fine, let's just do that. So, number 11, Caddo Lake. Written directed by a duo, and also produced by M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong. Let me just say right now that M. Night deserves to be banned from ever even picking up a smartphone. Because I don't care if he produced this. I don't care what. They tried for M. Night Shyamalan twist that everybody could have seen coming from a mile away. It's based around, the swamps and everything, and some goofy, creepy, weird stuff happens. At least that was the attempt. And if you can't guess exactly where this is going, then, well, you're better than me. Because I was able to guess exactly where this is going. Now, granted, they try to throw a bunch of curveballs and try to invert back on itself. Like to the point it's going to go up its own ass more than the Human Centipede trilogy. But this film was not scary. Was not, a way to draw you in. It was just really, really... Caddo Lake was really fucking bad. Really fucking bad. I remember watching... I believe this is on Max. I think it was the week before or the week of Salem's Lot. I'm really trying to remember. I think it actually might have been the week after. But it was just really, really shitty. Like, really fucking shitty. I'm looking at the cast like, okay, maybe, no. And it's just one of those where it tries to play on people's fears, or, the more you try to do something, the more you try to fight against the inevitable. I'm trying to keep it as spoiler-free as possible, because time travel is involved, I'll just say that, but none of it makes sense if you try to break it down, and even if you try to tie things together, I just don't know how this movie was made the way it was. Number 10, The Front Room. Brandy returned to acting for this. You had the old lady that played the mother that was pertaining to also be infant-like and everything. proving that infants and the elderly, when they are unable to care for themselves, are kind of like the same. You have a prime amount of time where you're not shitting yourself and you don't need care, and then near the end of your life, you possibly are shitting yourself and need care. And if it was meant to be a comedy, horror comedy, it wasn't funny. And even the gross out stuff, I'm like, okay, I wasn't grossed out by it. I was just annoyed. I was really, really fucking annoyed by this. Like, I just do not understand why A24 thought slapping their, label on this was going to work. Because it didn't succeed. Now, it probably didn't cost too much, but Brandy returned to acting for this. Utter garbage, just like number 9, The Watchers. One of M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong's daughters directed this. I don't know which one. I don't fucking care. If this is what she learned from her dad, find something else to do. Georgina Campbell, the incredibly gorgeous Georgina Campbell, I should say, is in this. And yeah, the idea of people in this little, abode having to entertain these watchers every night, and they can't leave at night or they'll get killed. I already figured out pretty much from, the trailer where this is probably going to go. I mean, but, okay, maybe I'll be wrong. No, I was right. I think anybody would be right if you just watch this trailer, twice. You're like, oh, they're watching them for whatever reason. Gee, I wonder why they're watching these 4 people in particular, huh? I wonder why they'd be doing that, and they can't go out in the woods, and if you didn't figure it out, good for you. Fuck it. Don't have his goddamn daughter do another movie. Everybody's got to start somewhere, but some people's, line of work really should go elsewhere. Latency. Sasha Luss, who was in, the fuck was that? Anna? That was that assassin movie. I watched it one friend a while ago in Bellingham. I don't remember how many years ago it was, but I was like, okay, she's in this horror movie where she has a VR set and she's trying to attach to her head that can get into her mind and stuff like that, and she's in this apartment where she drinks copious amounts of Red Bull and she doesn't want to leave her apartment because she is an agoraphobic. I think that's the right term. And not that Sasha was necessarily the most dynamic actress in Anna, but Jesus, they had this just essentially be a one-location shoot, and it was obvious where it was going, and it was also a complete tonal fucking misfire. Latency basically just ended up being a streaming movie put out in theaters. This could have gone directly in Netflix or Hulu or even Shudder, and nobody would have missed shit. I cannot imagine that this movie cost much, but I can't imagine that it even made that back. Really, really dog shit scares. And also, very simple story that really absolutely went nowhere. Number 7, Skeletons in the Closet. Terrence Howard, Cuba Gooding Jr., who apparently I found out was a bit of a naughty individual himself. I knew about Terrence Howard. I didn't know about Cuba Gooding Jr., and I also don't know why in the world anybody thought this was a good idea. Some of the worst special effects within the first 10 minutes, as much of a horror movie as, I guess basically some movies could be classified as a comedy, like a lot of Will Ferrell movies in the last number of years. Skeletons in the Closet was almost bafflingly awful within the first 10 to 15 minutes. I'm watching this and thinking this has to be a joke. This is a rib. This cannot actually be a movie. And the fact is, this should have honestly been number 1 for how fucking incompetent it was. But I was laughing enough at it that I can't exactly stay totally mad at the movie. But it's also a punishing 95 to 100 minutes when it has barely enough material to be part of a short film anthology, as opposed to a long film anthology. Skeletons in the Closet. Jesus. It's on Shudder if you really want to try and endure it. The Mousetrap. Okay, so Winnie the Pooh, Peter Pan, Popeye, Bambi, various other characters, all these horror characters. Cinderella's Revenge didn't even make it in the honorable mentions because it's barely a movie. The Mousetrap had the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse entering the public domain. So they decided whoever the fuck actually directed this fucking fiasco, got a minor amount of funding together, a few people, and put them in an arcade-like thing, and then somebody got possessed by Mickey and wore a mask and killed people eventually. Kinda. This is 80 minutes, and I'm honestly astonished at how little happened. It also featured such terrible CGI. It was like, did Windows 95 Movie Maker get implemented for this? It's on Peacock, but I don't know why in the world you'd want to watch it. It also was just the dumbest reason as to why anything happened with this killer. Like the dumbest reason why you would try to stop him, or how nobody, knew how to stop him once they were able to contain him a little bit. The editing was absolute dog shit. Some of the worst acting I've fucking seen. Terrible blood usage. Still not as bad as number 5, Imaginary. Oh boy. Thank you so much. Thank you, Blumhouse. Thank you for reminding me that you are the bane of my fucking existence. And Jason Blum is a goddamn moron. A goddamn moron. Imaginary had to do with a stuffed teddy bear. There was a conduit to a different world. And yeah, that kid, look, I'm saying this much. That the girl tried, bless her. No. There are some child actors that just can't work. And send her to some acting school or let her be a kid. Let her come back in a few years when the taste is washed out of her mouths. But Jesus, Imaginary. Not scary. The opening sequence actually made me think they're ribbing us. They're actually going to start the movie. And then I realized they started it and that was actually something they were doing. And what the fuck? Why? Why would you do this? Remember how anybody that watched my review knows how much I goddamn lost it during this whole thing. It's just a fiasco from top to bottom with predictable characters and terrible dialogue. An abomination of a flick. Still not as bad as The Deliverance. They had Glenn Close say something about I believe the line was something about a nappy pussy. No, really, that's actually something that was said because she was supposed to be possessed. Part devil possession, part family drama, and all bullshit. The Deliverance is one of the worst Netflix movies that I've seen in fucking years. Everybody involved in this goddamn thing, even Glenn Close. How dare you? How fucking dare you think that you should be allowed to ever act in a goddamn film again after this? And I know everybody, you cannot bat 1,000. Nobody can. But how dare you? The director, how dare... Netflix, how dare you? How very dare you? If you have not seen The Deliverance, if that doesn't sell you on basically the fact that this is a terrible movie, I don't know what will. The Curse of the Necklace. This was a joke. That's it. This was something that was plucked from like the mid to late 90s, maybe the early 2000s, which it feels weird to say that was just 20 to over 20 years ago. The fact that this film, honestly was put on, even got a limited theatrical release, or was even put on a streaming service, was not basically just offered to people for free. I know people have to make money. But you cannot tell me that this movie deserved to earn a goddamn dime. Terrible editing, terrible acting. 1,000% terrible acting. Lit so goddamn badly, you couldn't even tell what the hell was going on. Why'd they bother taking off the goddamn lens cap? A horrible ending. Terrible villain. The special effects, the scares, all of this stuff. It just made for an abomination of a goddamn flick. 1,000% terrible. So not as terrible as number 2. It was so close between this and number 1. Maybe I should say number 1 because that's what it deserved. But number 2, Trap. Yeah, I guess it was meant to be a comedy, but they also had horror elements. It was successful at neither. Josh Hartnett at least was having fun, but nobody else. Not a goddamn person in this was any good. And okay, M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong did it again and brought his daughter on stage, the one that can sing. And sure, she can sing. Go sing somewhere else. You ain't a fucking actress, toots. You definitely can't act, just like your father can't act, or direct, or write, or do anything. Except make really shitty movies. Trap deserved every bit of ridicule that it got. And even if you take it as a satire, it's not smart enough to be a satire, because M. Night's not smart enough to do anything right anymore. It also goes way too goddamn long. And features so many stupid twists and this kind of stuff and whatever, and it's not entertaining. It is painful to watch. I don't remember what channel this is, or what streaming service is on. I think it's on either Hulu or Max. I don't remember. But Trap is 1,000% terrible. Speaking of terrible, number 1, The Strangers, Chapter 1. Fuck you, Rennie Harlan. You should not be allowed to ever even draw a goddamn breath on a movie set. Anytime you go near a movie set, you should be forced to be deprived of oxygen until you leave. How dare you, Rennie Harlan? How dare anybody in this cast think that they were any goddamn good, that you were any kind of actor or whatever? And there are people that are capable actors on this. But the writing, the goddamn scares, everything about this was just a carbon copy of the 2008 Strangers that, by the way, upon rewatching, really wasn't all that great. It really wasn't. And they're doing 2 more of these. But this one was so badly received, they didn't even release the second one this year like they planned. They actually planned to release all 3 this year. But then, oh no, it wasn't well received. You know why? Because it was fucking dog shit. And the more I think about it, the more angry I get. Because at least you could have tried. And they didn't. Except they tried to make it really, really fucking terrible. So yeah, that's it. That's the worst movie, the worst horror movie, that is, of 2024. Let me know your least favorite, worst, whatever, in the comments, please. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter, Letterboxd, and Blue Sky handles in the description. I'm John Rentlin. Here's to better horror movies in 2025. I will see you soon.